Jacob Trouba is undoubtedly a name that has been making waves in the NHL recently, and not always for the right reasons. After being an integral part of the New York Rangers for several seasons, it became clear that the relationship between Trouba and the Rangers had soured. The once prominent captain was no longer the centerpiece of their defense core. In fact, the Rangers were actively seeking ways to offload him, trying everything from persuading him to waive his no-trade clause to even threatening him with waivers. As the pressure mounted, Trouba made the decision to finally move on, agreeing to a trade with the Anaheim Ducks. This move, while not entirely unexpected, sparked a flurry of rumors across the league. The Ducks were able to land a player with considerable experience, but many of us in Toronto couldn't help but wonder why the Leafs were even rumored to be interested in Trouba. The Leafs are no strangers to making bold moves, but this one seemed almost too risky, even for them. After all, Trouba is not exactly the type of player you'd think the Leafs would target in their quest for a strong defense. Yes, the Leafs have struggled on the blue line for years, and an upgrade in that area is certainly needed if they want to make a real push for the Stanley Cup. However, the prospect of bringing in a player like Jacob Trouba raised a number of red flags. Trouba's game, once characterized by his physicality and solid defensive play, has deteriorated significantly over the past few seasons. At 30 years old, he's already entering the twilight of his career, and it's clear that his body has taken a significant toll from the wear and tear of years in the NHL. One of the biggest concerns with Trouba is his decline in mobility. Last year's playoff series against the Florida Panthers was a glaring example of how slow he has become. The Panthers made him look like he was skating through molasses as they easily danced around him in the conference finals. His once vaunted physicality, a hallmark of his game, has also waned in recent years. Trouba's inability to keep up with the pace of the game was evident, and it's clear that the league has evolved to a point where players like him are starting to show their age. Another major issue with Trouba is his contract. With a cap hit of $8 million per year, the Leafs would have had a tough time fitting him under their salary cap without making significant sacrifices. The Leafs already have some hefty contracts on their books, including Auston Matthews, John Tavares, and Mitch Marner, so adding an aging defenseman with a large cap hit would have been a difficult pill to swallow. While the idea of adding a high-profile player to bolster the blue line is always enticing, the reality is that Trouba's contract was a financial burden that the Leafs simply couldn't afford to take on. The thought of the Leafs clearing that much cap space for a player who is past his prime is, frankly, baffling. It would have been a gamble that, given the circumstances, was hard to justify. The Leafs front office has been focused on building a team capable of competing for the Stanley Cup, and acquiring an aging defenseman with a sizable contract didn't seem like the right move for a team that is already under the microscope for its playoff failures in recent years. It's not that Trouba is a bad player, but rather that his best years are behind him. The league has become faster, more skilled, and more dynamic, and players who were once able to dominate through sheer physicality and grit are finding it harder to keep up. While Trouba still has some value as a veteran presence in a dressing room, the Leafs already have plenty of leadership in their lineup. What they needed was a defenseman who could contribute immediately and help them win now, not someone who might be on the decline and who comes with such a hefty cap hit. The idea of the Leafs being interested in Trouba seemed to defy logic. Given their current cap situation, the team would have needed to make drastic moves to accommodate him, and even then, it's hard to see how adding Trouba would have made them significantly better. The Leafs have already seen the limits of their current roster and need to make moves that address their immediate needs. A player like Trouba simply didn't fit into that equation. Of course, it's possible that the Leafs were just doing their due diligence and were never seriously considering acquiring Trouba. The NHL is a league where rumors and speculation run rampant, and sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the hype. After all, the Leafs have made some splashy moves in recent years, so the thought of them adding a player of Trouba's pedigree wasn't entirely out of the question. However, upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that the risks far outweighed any potential reward. As the trade deadline approaches, it wouldn't be surprising if the Rangers tried to move Trouba again, as they continue to retool their roster. However, for Leafs fans, the best course of action would be to steer clear of this particular trade. While it's always tempting to add big-name players to the roster, the Leafs need to be careful not to repeat the mistakes of the past. They've seen firsthand how an aging player with a high cap hit can limit their flexibility and hinder their ability to make other moves. Trouba might be a name that excites some fans, but his time in the spotlight has passed, and the Leafs need to focus on building a roster that can contend for championships in the present and future. In the end, the Leafs should be looking for players who can make an immediate impact and contribute to a team that is already on the cusp of greatness. With their current roster, adding someone like Trouba could have set them back both on the ice and financially. Instead, they should be focused on making smart, calculated moves that will give them the best chance to finally break through and win the elusive Stanley Cup. As a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, I can only hope that the front office stays true to its long-term vision. While big moves can be exciting, it's important to remember that true success comes from building a sustainable, balanced roster that can compete year in and year out. Trouba's time has passed, and the Leafs need to keep their eyes on the prize, a championship. I think, when it comes to rumors about acquisitions and trades in the hockey market, it's easy to get carried away by the excitement of the moment, especially when names like Jacob Trouba are mentioned. However, a more in-depth analysis reveals that not always is making moves in the trade market the best choice for a team in development, such as the Leafs. The pressure to win is enormous, especially in a city like Toronto, where expectations are always high. However, the solution for the team's success might not simply be adding one more big name to the defense. While Trouba is undoubtedly a robust and experienced defenseman, he no longer represents the answer to the Leafs' defensive struggles. The team, despite needing urgent help on the blue line, also needs a player who can integrate into the team's dynamic style of play. Trouba, with his increasing slowness and physical limitations, doesn't seem to be the missing piece to complete Toronto's puzzle. What the Leafs really need is a player who can contribute immediately and significantly in all aspects of the game. A fast defenseman with good hockey IQ and the ability to transition quickly from defense to offense. Toronto already has a good core of talented players, but they need a solid defense to help them overcome difficulties in decisive moments. Trouba, although strong physically, no longer possesses the mobility needed to keep up with the pace demanded by the team. Moreover, the pressure for quick results in the NHL sometimes leads teams to make hasty moves. In the case of the Leafs, they need consistency and, more importantly, cap space flexibility. Spending $8 million a year on an aging player would be a big step backward for a team that already has high contracts, considering the deals of Matthews, Marner, and Tavares. Another crucial point is the psychological impact this potential transaction could have on the rest of the team. If the Leafs had acquired Trouba, it would have been a public statement that the defense needed a big star. This could destabilize a locker room that, for a long time, has worked hard to maintain cohesion and harmony. It's not just about skills on the ice, but also about how the team's dynamic would shift with the addition of a veteran like Trouba. Given what we've seen in past playoffs, it's evident that the Leafs' defense needs adjustment, but this shouldn't simply be done by adding big-name players. The focus should be on improving the team's defensive system collectively and finding players who complement the rest of the roster better. Trouba, despite his qualities, doesn't seem to be the perfect fit in this dynamic. The truth is that cap management is one of the biggest challenges for any NHL team, and this is where the Leafs need to be smarter. They already have several high-caliber players on their roster, and making wrong investments can hurt their chances for future building. Trading for Trouba would have been, at best, a risky move, given its immediate financial impact and the uncertainties surrounding his ability to meet the franchise's expectations. The Leafs' search for defensive reinforcements can't be rushed. If they want to truly build a championship-caliber team, they should look for players who fit into their long-term plan and add value, both in skill and adaptability to the playing system.